it's clear that we can't function this way anymore.
No, not at all. So, and
So-
luckily I know a couple of resources that can help you out. You can try cardonclub.com or hippopremsps.com.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 438 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle. What's up, Donna?
This, that, and the other.
Yeah, you ready? Ready for Christmas?
No. I've never been a huge holiday get into it person.
Mm-hmm.
Just going to the parties is enough for me. So I'll just attend what I choose and then deal with the family going, why haven't you done blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. I love this time of year because it's you buy me a $50 gift and I'll buy you a $50 gift, and then we'll both be happy.
Yeah, I'm really glad that my family, my siblings, and we years ago decided that everybody would make charitable donations. So sometimes our family has bought goats for families in Africa or, things like that. But it's school supplies for refugees, and you never know what it's going to be. But, and we taught the kids that. So I'm glad, it's like, my nephews, we would give them a gift, but then we would have them get together and decide what charity their other half of their gift would go to.
That's a great idea. I like that.
Yeah, I'm a sucker.
Yeah. Well, I've got new grandkids and one more on the way and all that. So there is no shortage of people who need things.
No.
Yeah. But I always love it. Like when, I have an aunt or somebody who'll call, we're having a Christmas party. Send me a list of some things that you might want for $25. I'm like, if it's $25 and I want it, I've already got it.
We're at that point in our lives. Yes.
Yeah. Now, if it's $2,500, now we can talk. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things, but I don't know. The thing about holidays, I don't mind the holidays so much as I don't like the weather. Like I hate the weather this time of year.
That's why I'm going to go to Key West for a week in January, just because gray and rain just is hard on my soul.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to go through some things today, though, because stuff is a changing.
There are things that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we know they move slowly, but these are things that we've been trying to get, we've been part of for some time. And I'm excited to see it moving.
Yeah. Yeah. And, this is one of those times which happens often where it's a struggle for us to figure out which of the multiple things we need to talk about are we going to talk about today. And it's funny because people often ask, I know they ask you and ask me too, like, how do you come up with topics to talk about? Or how do you don't run out of stuff to talk about? I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like, yeah, like we're trying to figure out, what things are we not going to talk about because there's so many things. We can't say yes to everything.
Well, and it's like when we were working on this today, I was like, yeah, that came out October 26th. We still haven't even had time to cover it yet. So,
yeah.
It's getting thrown in here with the other stuff because it was referenced, but we're trying really hard to stay on top of the big things and get the little ones out there, but there's just so much. So yeah. The hardest part is figuring out what to put in here and how to make it not too nerdy, but nerdy.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, that's part of what we do in HIPAA for MSPs as well as in Card and Club is we take all this content that's being thrown at us all the time, all this information, and we try to figure out what is relevant to our audience, to our members, and let's distill that down.
Yep.
And then present it to you then. That way, instead of you spending 4 hours a day like we do, you
Yeah.
spend, 10, 15 minutes and you've got everything you need to know to be actionable. So there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, good point there, David. Go check out cardonclub.com and HIPAA4MSPs.com.
Yeah. There's your New Year's resolution. And I'm telling you, after today's podcast, you might want to check it out for sure.
Yeah. There's stuff happening here because
Yeah.
part of the perks is you get discounts on special pricing on things like the PriceSec boot camp.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that.
Well, we said we were working on it, and I think we've gotten everybody with a hard commitment that we are. Drumroll, please. That was a bad one. So April 9th through the 12th of 2024 will be the HIPAA PriceSec boot camp.
Yeah.
So, y'all, if you're waiting till we give you the dates, there they are. And hopefully, by the beginning of the year, because this come out right before New Year's, so at the beginning of the year, we'll have everything up and running so you can sign up, or before then, and send us an email if you need any information before everything's out there on the websites.
Yeah, go ahead and get this approved for your 2024 training and compliance. We got CEUs we always get, so we have to apply for those, but I'm sure we'll get those as well.
So here in Atlanta, so if we're lucky, it'll be right before pollen season gets bad, but the weather started getting nice. So there we have it, folks. So
very good.
Our now little segue, and then we get to HIPAA Say What?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanking our donors and please post and all that stuff. Y'all know that, right?
Yeah. I mean, why we got to tell you every week? Just do it.
Please.
Well, the reason we have to tell you every week is because we have new people every week from Liberia that are listening, and they may not know that.
Don't understand, but we're fine with it.
So if you missed it last time, we made the announcement that we're rated in the top 100, top 50, whatever podcast in Liberia under the business category.
Yeah.
So shout out to whoever that is.
Yeah. Thanks, Liberia.
I know. All right, let's get into it. We got a lot to cover today and a lot of interesting stuff. Matter of fact, you and I spent a ton more time talking about it before we hit record than we have time to do it now, because it was just like, ooh, oh, look at that. Ooh. And then, of course, finding things. I know. So let's dive in. HIPAA Say What? HHS, the Office for Civil Rights, has a settlement. First time ever, a phishing cyber attack investigation happened.
Well, not the first time an investigation, but the first settlement
from the investigation.
Yeah. I am aware of other investigations.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Yep. So they settled the first ever phishing cyber attack investigation. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
It all depends on where you pause the words. It just makes a completely different meaning.
We'll go with that.
All right.
There, Mr. Sims.
So let's take a look at it.
Yeah, it had a big dollar amount to get everybody's attention. $480,000. Outside the realm of where most of us would like to be. But then there's also the 2-year corrective action plan, which is probably, a couple $100,000, if not more. That'll end up costing with the extra monitoring and all the stuff that OCR reports that you have to file.
Yeah.
So this is it's Louisiana, so who knows how it's pronounced, because you don't pronounce words in Louisiana just the way they look. You get things like LaFontaine and all this kind of stuff. But LaForche Medical Group is this one.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but when I see these settlements, one of the first things I look at is like, is it a small medical group? Is it a hospital system? Like, I want to know kind of what space I'm in as I'm reading this.
And so we did. We went to the website and checked it out. Looks like it's like a small urgent care facility, about 4 docs. What was it? Some docs and some PAs, a mixture of docs and PAs.
Yeah. I think it
Uh,
was two doctors and 3 PAs, I believe it was.
Something like that. So, not huge, but more than one doc. But $480,000, that's a lot of money out of them. So there's a lot to this story we think we don't know. And we're just going to go with what's been published and hope that these folks get some help because it looks like they need it.
Yep.
So let's talk about the timing, David.
It's impeccable.
Oh, right. Somebody did some math.
Yeah. So one of the first things I look at often too is like, how long did it take them to report? Because we see all kind of craziness, years, months, whatever. But the ones that are really close always intrigue me. And this one I looked at and it was like, oh, it was reported on May 28th of 2021, and the attack happened March 30th, 2021. And though I'm not good at math, I know that's very close to 60 days.
I know.
And so I'm like, okay, did it like just squeeze by, or was it just too long, like just a few days too long? So, of course, I do the math, and they reported on day 59.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how they got to the 34,862 approximate patients, because I know how hard it is to pull that out of email accounts. I've dealt with people trying to figure it out before, and you get years and years worth of that stuff, and there are a lot of patients buried in there. And this is another reason that I say you shouldn't even use encrypted email to be sending PHI for this particular reason.
Yeah.
Right here. Use some other tool so that, the email communication things, they can't get data out of that.
Right.
But I don't know. Nobody listens to me.
Yeah, they do.
So, as is the custom, any breach reported over 500, they do an investigation. So you can just expect it. And everybody's like, well, we hadn't heard from him. It's been 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm like, yeah, sometimes it takes a year. And I think they weren't even notified of the investigation right away because it was during, COVID madness. I think they probably got in 2022, the investigation notification from what I saw. I think somewhere in there in the resolution agreement, it says, we notified you of blah, 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 blah. And I'm going there right now because I think I read it and then I start to worry. Yes, January 13th, 2022, they were notified they were under investigation. So they probably were like, I've seen them before, and I keep telling them, it'll come. It'll come.
Yeah.
You'll get notified. It's coming. It's coming. You need to pay attention. And then they start to get a little like, oh, we're good. We don't have to do anything. Boom. The hammer comes down. So the investigation, they found 2 problems. They just happened to be 2 very big problems. And I guess because of these 2 problems, they couldn't identify many more problems that were violations of HIPAA failures because they had never conducted a security risk analysis prior to the 2021 incident. Never.
Ouch.
Yeah. So that's a big indicator of why that $480,000. And let me assure you, you better be sure that you actually have a risk analysis and not a gap analysis and not a minimal analysis, but a complete and thorough one. and so many people don't know what those include. There is a concern. We need to do another one next year. We'll do one on what should be in a risk analysis.
I mean, as a matter of fact, if I were to get one from somebody, I would probably make sure the heading, the title said accurate and thorough risk assessment.
So they didn't do that, and they had never implemented procedures to review any records of information system, and basically they had no policies and procedures, it looked like. One part it made me think they had none, and another part it's like they don't have any particular ones for information security activity review. So they're on a corrective action plan for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Jeez.
I've never seen that one before.
All right. 2 years. Now I closed up that said weeks. Look what happens when I'm trying to rearrange the tabs on my. No policies in place and procedures in place to regularly review things. So I'm going to guess there weren't a lot of policies and procedures in place if they hadn't done the security risk analysis, and they didn't have that. But those are the two specific ones that are in relation to the event that occurred that they put in as violations. And these are potential violations of HIPAA. Now, we both know if those hadn't been done, they could go down this list with a whole bunch of others because, there's no risk analysis means also no risk management plan, which also means, that goes deeper down into other requirements. So when everybody's like, oh, they just want my money. No, they could have gone full out and said all kinds of things were violations. But they stick to the two main things. These are the two big problems that cause the problem. So what is our quote, David, from OCR Director Melanie Fonts Rayner?
She says, phishing is the most common way that hackers gain access to healthcare systems to steal sensitive data and health information. It is imperative that the healthcare industry be vigilant in protecting its systems and sensitive medical records, which includes regular training of staff and consistently monitoring and managing system risk to prevent these attacks. We all have a role to play in keeping our healthcare system safe and taking preventative steps against phishing attacks. End quote.
Thank you for the end quote. So, and it is, to do the Jeopardy, phishing and social engineering. The Jeopardy is, what is Hiccup's top threat? Number one threat. Not like in order of priority, but it's the first one listed because it's the way they get in to do so many things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not pretty. So then we went through the CAP. And there were some interesting statements in there.
Yes, there were.
Yeah, that I just made note of to share because, I don't know. It seemed, again, it's where it's clear there's more to the story that we don't know. Because the very first item on the CAP, of course, is always the security risk management. And it says, LMG shall create, document, and implement security measures sufficient to reduce risk and vulnerabilities to EPHI identified in its December 2022 security risk assessment. Okay. So this was just announced December 2023.
Right. So what did you do with the risk assessment when you had it done?
Yeah, and they did one in 2021. I have so many questions that make no sense, but again, it's clear there's more to it.
Yeah.
But as always, for those who say you don't need to do an annual risk assessment or risk analysis, what did we find in there, David?
We found that it says, and I quote, LMG shall annually conduct an accurate and thorough assessment of potential risk and vulnerabilities. So there you go.
Yeah, and including any affiliates that are owned, controlled, or managed by LMG, and document the security measures LMG implemented or is implementing to sufficiently reduce the identified risk and vulnerabilities to a reasonable and appropriate level.
Yeah. The only thing I can think of is they had the assumption that all they had to do was that security risk assessment. Let's just do that, get that done every year, and we're done. But
And
they
we're going to have
didn't.
IT run a report.
Right. Maybe. I don't know. But they didn't understand that that's step one of other steps. It's like, oh, as long as you do your risk assessment, you're good. But
Yeah.
no, there's more than that's the only thing I can think of, because they had one, but they didn't do anything further than that. So don't know.
And they did, and there was another thing further down in the risk analysis discussion that said LMG may submit any risk analysis performed in 2023 or that is currently underway for consideration by HHS for compliance with this provision, along with the corresponding risk management plan. Let's don't leave that off.
Yeah. Well, if they did one in December of 22, it's now December of 23. So maybe they're looking at getting one or in the process of getting one. I don't know.
Yeah,
But,
none of that kind of tied together made sense, but that's why I said I hope they're getting help, because clearly there's some stuff that's out of alignment.
Yeah.
But then you found something very interesting when you dug down into this next section, and I was like, wait, what? It said what?
Yeah. I don't know if this is special for them or if this is a new expectation we might see coming down. So it says that the policies and procedures shall include a process for regular review of all records of information system activity collected by LMG, and a process for evaluating when the collection of new or different records needs to be included in the review. We see all that verbiage all the time. So you need to be reviewing your logs and your system activity stuff. But here's the thing. I've not seen this before. The policies and procedures should also identify what systems are being included in the review and a 14-day frequency to conduct such reviews. Now,
That's very specific.
Yeah. So what I don't necessarily know, are they talking about when, 14-day review of your policies and procedures should happen, if something changes, or are they saying you need to make sure your information system activity is reviewed in a 14-day cadence, which that's kind of what it sounds like.
That is, to me, what I'm reading. I mean, the policies and procedures should also identify what systems are being included in the review and a 14-day frequency to conduct such reviews.
Yep. So, wow.
David's like, "Uh-oh, quick."
Well, think about all you IT folks out there, we send out monthly reports all the time, right? Well, according to this, a monthly report needs to be now every 2 weeks. Actually, probably every week, because they need to have it looked at in 14 days. So if that's your job, you're selling that service to them, then the way this looks, at least for this client or this practice, you need to be doing that every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I have to wonder, really, we're getting to the point, and we've said this over and over, that everybody's just going to need some level of a SIM.
Yeah. Yep. Because it's coming to it.
Yeah. So if you already have one, great. You should be covered. But you need to make sure all the right systems are being dumped in there.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, those only review your technical systems. That's not reviewing the log of activity and accessing your PHI in your EHRs.
Right.
Whole other thing that's supposed to be reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times that SIMs and other things in the logs miss things in the technical, and they catch it, an anomaly in activity actually in the EMR. I mean, Ray has told us about that before when we've had him on, talking about how there are times that Sphere has caught things that would not look abnormal under the IT systems the technical logs.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
it's a lot.
yeah, it was pretty. It's pretty interesting. So at the end of the announcement, the press release, they had a long list of resources, guidance, all kinds of explanations about what you need to do and understand about phishing in the health sector, including the 405D resources that we put out, and as well as one that, this is what I mentioned earlier, that it came out and we just haven't had time to get it in, work it in anywhere. But this seemed like a perfect time. It's one of the HC3s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called, I'll probably screw up this trying to say it, AI Augmented Phishing and the Threat to the Health Sector.
Yes. Which was
And
very interesting.
yeah,
It is rabbit hole reading for me.
but it takes you through all of these different, you as you said, like the first page is nothing but definitions. So you
The
learn
first two
two
first
pages.
2 pages, yeah. It's like, wow, you gotta know what all this stuff is so you can understand it. But it's a very good document, and it's not completely geek speak, but there is some stuff in there. But again, these are things where you either need to have somebody on your IT team that's going through these, an MSP that you're outsourcing to that goes through these, or you need to be in HIPAA for MSPs or card and clubs, so we can go through these and tell you what it is you need to be worried about, because this is a fantastic document.
Mm-hmm. So wish we'd just gotten to it sooner.
Yeah.
But there was one point where David had an exclamation point like on his face when he got to this part of the document when we were reviewing it. And I'm sure that you're going to give it the proper emotional response when you share it. So you just go right ahead.
Yeah, and then I'll explain my shock. So the quote in the paper says, making this even easier for attackers, there are tools such as Fraud GPT. And we've talked about how you can custom make your own GPTs nowadays. So there's a thing called Fraud GPT. It's been developed specifically for nefarious purposes, as the name might make you think. So Fraud GPT is a generative AI tool. It can be used to craft malware and text for phishing emails. It is available on the dark web and on Telegram for a relatively cheap price of $200 per month or $1,700 per year for a subscription, which makes it well within the price range of even moderately sophisticated cyber criminals.
Mm-hmm.
So $200 a month. I'm like,
In the business, David.
Yeah. I'm thinking there are people that, look at me sideways when I'm talking about how much it is to protect their business. And you've got cyber criminals that are like, I'll throw a couple $100 a month at this. Sure. That's not a problem at all.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show, though, or prove even further, that the people that are trying to attack healthcare are more than happy to invest in the right tools, while those in healthcare are still reluctant to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And it's frustrating, because even when you have the means, meaning technical means, you have the technical means to protect people, or at the very least help them to defend themselves after an attack. In other words, to the public, to your patients, on a stand in a courtroom, you're in a defensible position at the very least. You have all that capability, and yet people want to hee-haw around about it and ask questions like, is this all really necessary? Yeah, hand them this document, and here, this is why all this is really necessary.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that is so often we have to spend a substantial amount of time making people or teaching people that it's not about all of those things. We're too small. Our staff doesn't do any of that. We don't have PHI. Our IT handles it. All of that list is none of that means you don't need to be worrying about these things, which is a great segue into our new HHS cyber plan.
Yeah, which I am excited for.
See what I mean? He's had all of these moments in 14 days, $200.
Yeah.
And then
yeah, I'm excited for this because it brings a lot of things together that you and I are working on with 405D and some other areas of HHS that are doing things, and you're starting to see, at least I am starting to see, like, oh, all these pieces of the puzzle are starting to kind of fit together and look really cool.
all of this fledgling work is starting to tie together, and we're going to be able to put a little bow on it, I hope. But
Yeah.
how crazy things can be. And so we don't know, the details. This just came out on the 7th, or 6th or 7th is the press release. HHS announces next steps in ongoing work to enhance cybersecurity for healthcare and public health sectors.
Yep.
Yeah. It really is a concept paper, and I did confirm. That means this is their plan, but I don't know why we had to call it a concept paper.
It's the plan for the plan.
Uh-huh. But it's an overview of the big picture that they're looking at. And so they included a lot of stats in the beginning of it to kind of explain why this matters. And this one really, I think, considering what we just talked about happening in 2021, OCR reports show, and they have these reports, there's lots of them. I still wish they'd tell us about the under 500s reported. It's through the roof, I'm sure. But from 2018 to 2022, there's been a 93% increase in large breaches reported to OCR.
Yep.
So I remember when we were looking at it, and it was 350 in a year, and we're like, that's going up. We know it's going up. So since then, so I guess that was 2017 maybe that we saw 350 or something. Anyway, it started at 369 in 2018, and it's up to 712. And those are just the ones with 500 or more patients. That's it. So that's a 278% increase in large breaches involving ransomware as part of that.
And I'll just add to it that that's reportable, or excuse me, not reportable, reported.
Yeah.
Breaches.
Those are the ones we know about, and we always feel like there's probably some we don't. Well, we feel certain there's some we don't.
I was gonna say, I don't even guess. I know. I know for a fact.
People, you should have done that. Oh no, we're fine. We didn't. Okay.
Yeah, let's just move on.
Okay. Don't even discuss that. We're not going to talk about that. That's old. That's water under the bridge, David. Water under the bridge.
Yeah.
But then they went on to point out cyber incidents affecting hospitals and systems led to extended care disruption, patient diversions to other facilities, and delayed medical procedures, all putting patient safety at risk. Now, we know every bit of that is true.
Oh, yeah. And it's even more than just at risk. I mean, there are documented cases where it's been worse than at risk.
Yeah. And the more we know that, the more that these, no one's ever really studied it, because, I mean, it wasn't a thing really until 2016. And, but at this point, we have data now to know a lot of things, and people are evaluating it. And, everybody's like, well, we don't need to study that. We know. No, I need data. People. It's like anything that has data analytics, I'm in. Can't help myself. I love it. So let's talk about what the paper, the healthcare sector cybersecurity strategy of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says. It's like there's 4 actions. Now, it does hit on all the things that we're already doing, which is like the HC3 stuff we just went through, the 405D stuff we've been doing. There's tons of stuff that is already happening. And they're talking about adding more and streamlining and packaging it all together.
Mm-hmm.
So, we just talked about not long ago introducing the CPG concept, and that's been mapped to HICcup.
Yep.
Well, that's good because, and I think it was in the CISA, the CPGs, it was in the CISA mitigation strategy. It specifically called them health HPH CPGs, but maybe it's what we're wanting to get to are specifically in healthcare, so that you can't go, well, that's not us. Nope, you're in healthcare, but it's to help institutions plan and prioritize implementation of high impact cybersecurity practices.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what we've already been down that path in 405D. And I think it's going to consolidate more in with streamlining it so people don't get so confused. And as we cross-reference into the CPGs, I don't know, HICcup may get changed to HPH CPGs. I don't know. But I think that that's what everything will be focused on. And that's cybersecurity performance goals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you really like the next one.
Yeah. So the next one are talking about providing resources to incentivize and implement cybersecurity practices. So, we're always talking about the stick all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm just wondering if they're going to come out with some more carrots. And they've done it before. They come out with the one about, if you're following recognized security practices for at least a year, there's some things that can benefit you. So hopefully they'll come out with some more things. And it says that they're going to work with Congress to obtain new authority and funding to administer financial support and incentives for domestic hospitals to implement high impact security practices. Now, I'm hoping it's not just hospitals. Hope it.
Yeah. Well, they're looking for those who, we talked about before, all of the rural hospitals and how they're going out of business because these cyber attacks are just devastating. But they didn't have the money to invest in the first place. Is what they're where they were. They needed the money to invest. Obviously, they were close to that razor thin margin of open or close.
Yeah.
The business. So the low end folks, they're looking to build basically like, I don't know, if you read it, to me, it kind of sounded like cybersecurity grants almost that would help you to invest in cybersecurity.
Like meaningful use.
Yeah. We did. Meaningful use did tell them to do that.
Yeah. But but the next one, if you don't like the carrot, then there's also the stick.
Well, they're calling it incentives.
Yeah. So the next one is the HHS will implement a strategy to support greater enforcement and accountability.
Yes.
Mm.
And we've had a lot of discussions about it. There's not that much, if there are no consequences, behavior doesn't change.
Right.
Isn't that what Dad and Grandpa?
Yes. Oh, yes.
The number of times I've heard all of the parents say, choices and consequences. Think it through when you see them about to do something stupid.
Yeah,
You know?
they're going at it from both ends. It's like we're going to incentivize the good behavior and we're going to punish the bad behavior. Let's just do both.
Yeah.
The interesting part, and you may have some insight on this, but it says they're going to propose new enforceable cybersecurity standards informed by the HPH CPGs that would be incorporated into existing programs, maybe HIPAA or maybe Hiccup. Do we know?
Well, it says Medicare, Medicaid, and the HIPAA security rule, at least.
Yeah. So it does throw in the HIPAA security rule, which, by the way, HHS OCR says they will begin. Get this now. We don't hear this very often.
Never have, I don't think.
They're going to begin an update to HIPAA, the security rule specifically, in spring of 2024. So a few months. And it's going to include the new cybersecurity requirements. So, for years, you and I have both said, there's been no update to HIPAA. Stop telling people the HIPAA's been updated and HIPAA's changing and all this kind of stuff. Well, guess what? It's going to change.
Well, we've all known it needed to.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how it's lasted this long in the cybersecurity space is pretty impressive.
Yeah. The way it was written, it was risk-based, and the risk changed, but the problem is the culture hasn't changed with the risk.
Yeah. Well, the downside to it is, and for some reason I hear Eric Decker in my head when I say this, we can't get you to do the current HIPAA. How are we going to get you to do it?
Now you hear Roger.
Is it Roger?
Yeah. So, but yeah, that is it. The OCR director, he said
Severino?
That.
Yeah. Sorry, Eric.
Yeah, blame Eric. We'll blame Eric for
I'm sure he said that.
Right. So, yeah, we need to get Eric on to talk about all this stuff. So, the big thing there is they have a date on it. So, that means stuff's already underway. You know that. Spring of 2024, new cybersecurity requirements that will be informed by these CPGs, which that's item number one, which we're already down that path pretty well because we have the Hiccup recommendations mapped to CPGs. It won't be complicated to kind of align those two. At least, well, it doesn't seem like it would be, but you and I both know things that seem simple are often much more complicated than they should be.
Yeah. I do wonder, I don't even know if they can do this, but I do wonder if they map HIPAA to, like the HIPAA security rule, if they map it to these CPGs, would it then make it easier and faster to change, so they're not having to change the security rule or update the security rule? They can just say, look, keep up with the CPGs. They'll change every year or two, but we're not having to change HIPAA. And
that's what I'm really hoping they're able to do, because changing a law is very hard to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's why recognized security practices didn't specify them, but specified NIST and Hiccup, because those can change according to the threat landscape and, whatever else we're doing. So I seriously hope, and I would assume based on the way this is worded, that will happen. But another thing to point out is it's not just HIPAA, because Medicare and Medicaid puts requirements on provider, either the facilities or the providers, in order for you to get paid through those government insurance programs, then you have to meet certain qualifications.
All right.
And these CPGs are going to probably be those qualifications to be able to get paid. And in the discussion of the CPGs, they did specifically state in the paper that they wanted to have a minimal set and then an enhanced set. So you kind of get extra credit. Minimal means you haven't failed, and enhanced means you're doing advanced security. Yeah.
Well, I don't know how I feel about that, because I can see everybody getting to the minimum. They're like, okay, we're done.
Well, we'd be way better off than we are today.
Yeah,
Number one. Number
that's true.
two is, over time, what used to be enhanced becomes minimum. Remember, it
Yeah.
wasn't that long
Mhm.
ago, MFA was enhanced.
Right.
Today,
Yeah.
it's minimum.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
everything we're doing today 5 years ago was, advanced security and advanced this. No, that's basic stuff now. We
Yeah.
don't even do basic anymore. I
Yeah,
threw that
what
out the
used to
window
be
years
basic.
ago.
Do you
Yeah.
have an antivirus program? You're good to go.
Yeah. No, and there's people that still think that way, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
no, I guess to my earlier point, the HIPAA security rule, we talked about this in a previous episode as well, that not just the security rule, even the privacy rule, it flat out plainly says this is the floor for HIPAA security or for cybersecurity. It's the floor. So there's your minimum already, and people aren't meeting the current minimum. That's my fear.
Yeah. Well, and the CPGs, though, are much more specific and less risk management terminology and more cybersecurity terminology. So hopefully that'll make a difference there.
Yeah. Well, it can't hurt. That's for sure.
No.
It can't hurt.
So what we're looking at here, and then we have the fourth thing is to expand and mature the one-stop shop within HHS for healthcare sector cybersecurity. So ASPR, which is the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Responses, they are a coordination team that is prepared for all kinds of responses. So they were key in developing and distributing the responses, whether it's a disaster, a major disaster, or the fire, those kind of things, natural disaster, but also, under COVID, they were involved in how do we coordinate all these resources.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't have a plan that included what all was happening at that time, but now they do.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like we're on the roller coaster, right? But we're at the part where we're going up the hill. Things are slowing down. Seems like not much is happening, but we're about to crest the top of the hill, and then what happens?
It's
wide open, and I think we're about to hit that wide open part where if you haven't been properly buckled in, it's going to be a rough ride.
Yeah. Well, it's bad if you're already behind,
right?
And so many times we find folks that are behind. If you're already behind, and then they have additional requirements, then you got to do two things. It's not going to be easier to jump over what you're not doing.
Right. Yeah. And for those that are MSPs that are in the space, if they're not ahead of this, or at least, aware of it and working on it, then they're not going to be able to advise you and help you either. So they're going to be catching up as well.
So we need to make sure that we're asking questions of those that we count on to know this stuff. If, that they are paying attention to the new cybersecurity strategy for the healthcare sector. Because things are going to happen. If we're talking spring 2024, and we already know the CPGs and stuff, we know that's going on. There's already multiple things that have been released about that for healthcare. So we know that's well down the path of what they're talking about. The incentive and items 2 and 3, they got to work with Congress. We can't do that much about.
Mm-hmm.
But item 1 is something that we are already involved in. And just as we've said, 2019, we started telling folks, you got to get involved and start doing things like HICCUP.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, what kind of blows my mind a little bit is that you shouldn't even need any kind of other incentive to do cybersecurity. Like, the incentive is that you're not having a breach or being, on the news or anything else. Not saying it still can't happen, but you drastically reduce the likelihood and the impact if it does happen. So, that should be your incentive, period.
Yeah, but everybody thinks it's not going to happen to them, and I'll deal with it when it does. They don't understand the blast radius of these things.
Talk to somebody who's been through it. They'll tell you a whole different story than what you got in your head. And if you think
Absolutely.
things are bad now, when we go through our 2024 predictions, maybe next week, I'm not sure, but there's some things on the horizon that, at least in my prediction, that are going to really change how people see the impact of ransomware. It's not going to be the same in 24, I don't think.
No, well, it's going to, they have continued to evolve as we develop new ways to manage it. They've developed new ways to still get the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's clearly working because of the level of increase, 273% increase in the ransomware attacks we know about.
Yeah. Yeah. But what they're doing is they're figuring out more ways to ransom. They're not just ransoming data anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're ransoming other things, as we learned in a previous episode, where, we're going to report this. This was the SEC. We're going to report your breach to the SEC because you're supposed to report it and you didn't. So now there's another ransomware data point.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's more.
What if they start reporting it to your patients?
Oh, yeah.
They send the letters.
It's all about how can we maximize the damage? And I think, well, I'm going to get into my prediction if I talk much more. Join us next time.
Yeah, I think there we got the holiday blooper show is next week, and then our predictions. So we get to take some time off just to recover from what we're reading here.
Yeah,
and all the things that we're discussing about what to include in our predictions. And I think it's going to be a significant year coming up, and we've got a lot to review with it. But I will say that, again, if you are already behind, or you're not certain that you're not behind, if you aren't absolutely certain you're up to date on all this stuff, then you need to put it in your plan right now for 2024 that you're going to buckle down and figure out where you are and do that plan right now. Because it takes forever to get anything done. We know that.
Yep.
So start now. Don't wait. We already have a lot. And, worst case, we got to tweak something. But we need to get it done because it's clear that we can't function this way anymore.
No, not at all. So luckily I know a couple of resources that can help you out. You can try cartonclub.com or hippofremsps.com. So there you go. Yeah. No more excuses.
Hey, look, and people are like, oh, you just want to make money. No, actually, we give away this for free. 340 something hours of free information telling you where to go, giving you links, all of that stuff, plus our volunteering on the 405D. So, we can't do much more. And, I like a house and some nice bourbon from time to time.
I just want a bowl of cereal.
Hell, that's all you get with all those kids and now the grandkids coming.
Yeah. So it's like anything else, man. You'll invest in those things that you find important. And it's not even, to me, not about investing in cybersecurity. It's investing in protecting your practice, protecting your business, and protecting your patients. That's what you're investing in. Cybersecurity is just the vehicle that we're using to get you there.
Yeah, it's just, you either learn to function without technology. That is your other option.
Mm-hmm.
Learn to function without technology. Go back to flip phones, basic text messaging.
Oh, those were.
But even those, where you had to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Oh
1,
gosh.
Hey, but it was cutting edge. I had my little pager thing that had keys on it long before, with an 800 number, long before anybody else. You could email me there.
Yeah, I had one of those.
It's cool stuff.
Yeah,
back in the day.
Yeah, and for sure. That's back when you had we actually had a limit. You remember you had a limit of how many text messages you could send.
Yeah.
Which I found out the hard way. I was like, what? We don't have
That's when
unlimited
you're
text messaging?
that's when you were catting around, I'm sure.
I will plead the fifth. All
Okay, there you go. Well,
right.
happy holidays to everybody, whatever you celebrate. I hope you celebrate it joyfully.
Yep.
And we should be back in time for New Year's.
Yeah. Watch out for those scams. Holidays.
Oh,
Here we
please.
are.
And
Come on.
they are seriously good and getting better. And seriously, go read that HC3 phishing thing about the AI stuff that's doing with it. I mean, we've always been paranoid. We've reached a level of paranoid with emails now that I just feel I cannot, unless I initiate it myself. I have to be careful on every single reply.
Yeah. Yep. It was fun. I had a client the other day sent me a text message. He's like, I've got 73 quarantined email alerts. What's going on? And I'm just laughing. And I'm replying back and says, sounds like you're getting attacked.
That's what it looks like.
You know, that's what security working looks like when you get notified every time. Imagine how many notifications I have to go through.
Oh, right.
Because I shield you from 99% of them.
You have no idea. You don't know what you don't know, as we always say.
That's right. All right, folks, that is our show for today. Thanks for listening. Be sure to join us next time. Again, as Donna said, have a wonderful holiday season. Remember to share us and follow us. Don't be creepy about it, though. And remember that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.